coming up in today's video. Follow along as I celebrate the Double Ninth Festival with some interesting activities, folk tales and rituals. The Double Ninth Festival is upon us. This festival, also known as Chong Yang Festival, ChongYang Cake, falls on the 9th day of the 9th month in the Chinese lunar calendar, hence the name Double Ninth Festival. And as for the name ChongYang, in the Yi Jing, the Book of Changes, the number 9 is regarded as of Yang. Yang, in the yin-yang dichotomy that forms a basis to the Chinese worldview, is portrayed as positive, bright and active, whereas yin is characterized as negative, dark and passive. The date for this festival features 2 9s in the Chinese calendar, thus making it a double yang day, and so it was given the name ChongYang Festival, Chong meaning repetition in Chinese. Another interesting factor is that the number 9 in Chinese is pronounced jiu. This sounds identical to the Chinese character for longevity. Traditionally, 9 is also believed to imply longevity, as it is the largest single-digit number, and so in Chinese folk beliefs, the number 9 contains the auspicious meaning of a long and healthy life. During the Warring States period, which was from around 206 BC to 220 AD, the Double Ninth Festival was marked as a ritual to worship the gods and ancestors for blessing the harvest. In modern times, it has also become a day to show respect to the elderly, and so many will visit elderly members of their family on this day. Some activities for the day include autumn outings, sightseeing, and mountain climbing. Many companies will organize events such as these during the festival for older, retired people so that they can have a relaxing day in groups and enjoy nature. Members of family who are free on this day will also accompany their elders whilst wishing health, happiness, and a long life upon them. The Chinese have had the tradition of climbing a mountain for blessings at ChongYang Festival since ancient times, and it actually stems from a strange but interesting legend about repelling evil spirits. Due to this tradition, ChongYang is also known as the Height Ascending Festival. For me, height ascending at ChongYang is a must, but not necessarily through mountain climbing. In the UK, I might visit some hills, a cliff, or even climb the steps of a tall building, depending on conveniency. If one has parkour friends, there are always many options for climbing, though of course safety is paramount, and in the case of height ascension, perhaps indoor walking the stairs would be a better option for the majority of us. I actually already participated in this year's height ascension trip a couple of days ago, opting to climb a pagoda. Climbing pagodas or towers at this time are a popular option for many people, as they are a little easier to climb, a little more convenient to access, have much spiritual significance, and are so very aesthetically pleasing. The pagoda I decided to visit was located in the famous Buddhist temple, Linggu Si, the Spirit Valley Temple. There they have a pagoda of the same name, Linggu Ta, the Spirit Valley Pagoda. The custom of climbing a height for blessings became popular as early as China's spring and autumn period, 771 to 476 BC. Apart from blessings and expelling bad luck and disasters, climbing mountains, pagodas or towers, etc. also indicate climbing to a higher position. This is also one of the important reasons that the ancients paid attention to this custom. In modern times, another reason that climbing heights is valued by many at this time, especially the elderly, is that it can also mean climbing to a longer life. There are no specific rules about how high one should climb. However, I personally feel one should reach an altitude that one is comfortable with, and yet also feels a sense of having achievement. The most important thing for me is that the process of climbing should bring joy and a sense of peace. I would be just as happy having climbed only 3 levels of a pagoda if that's what I felt was right within myself. For height ascension, I like to go with your best without over-exerting. It should feel natural, it should feel pleasant, and definitely not forced. Having reached the 6th level, I took a break from climbing to admire the spectacular scenery. It was especially lovely to see the silhouette of the pagoda atop the trees. I have visited the Spirit Valley Temple area a few times and have also previously ascended to the top of this particular pagoda once before. But that was many years ago, and admittedly, I was completely puffed out at the end of it. This was mainly due to being quite short on time and us all ascending to the top in a very rushed manner. It also wasn't done on any particular festival date or with other spiritual practitioners, so I was very excited and pleased to be able to return to this pagoda and this time slowly, mindfully, step by step experience the ascension to the top 9th floor. 9 levels on Double Ninth Festival made for an especially meaningful day for me. But before I headed home, I made sure to spend some quality time with one of the local temple kitties. There are many different folktales that tell of climbing mountains at ChongYang. One is the story of a fortune teller and a countryside family. It is said that a long time ago, there was a farming family living at the foot of Li Mountain. They were very hard-working people and lived a decent life. One day, the farmer on his way home from the fields met a fortune teller who was travelling but yet hadn't found a place to stay. Because it was getting dark, the farmer invited the fortune teller to stay at his home for one night. The farmer's home was relatively simple, just a plain thatched hut, so they built a thatched bunk in the kitchen for the wife, children, and fortune teller to sleep on. Early the next morning, when the fortune teller was leaving, the farmer woke up his family and treated the fortune teller to a tasty feast. Before leaving, the fortune teller looked at the place where the farmer lived and instructed him to take the family to climb a higher place on the 9th day of the 9th month and to not return until after noon. The farmer thought this a strange request and wasn't the type to just do what others say. But he then thought of how people often say that fortune tellers can read feng shui and are proficient in astronomy. Perhaps he knew something they didn't, and so he decided to take his advice, even if only to let the whole family enjoy the scenery from up high. September 9th came. The farmer took his wife and children to climb to the peak of Li Mountain to have some fun. When noon came, a spring suddenly appeared on the mountain and ran straight down to the foot of the hill. In a short time, it flooded the farmer's thatched shed, which was immediately washed away. It was then that the family realized that the fortune teller had saved their lives. Since then, it has become a custom for people to climb mountains at ChongYang to avoid disaster. A popular and traditional treat to enjoy at this festival is ChongYang Cake. These can come in different forms depending on the region. Here in Nanjing, it is most often a steamed cake with 2 layers, with nuts and red dates in the middle. This is the one I've purchased this year. It comes in a beautiful pink box with ChongYang-related imagery. They come sealed and ready to steam and can be kept for around a month at room temperature if left unopened. So if you fancy having them a little later in the month, that's fine too. They always look so pretty. I can't wait to try this one. So let's put it in the steamer for 15 to 20 minutes. My dad has told me that in his childhood, my grandmother would also make ChongYang cake herself from scratch, using rice flour, dried fruit and nuts. I've never made one myself, but it's something I'd love to try next year in honor of her, and I'm sure she'd really appreciate it. The word for cake and the word for high in Chinese are both pronounced gao. Since gao can also mean that a person has progressed to a higher level, partaking in these cakes on this day implies ascension, that personal progress will be made with every step. So if one can't make it out to climb for height ascension, one can still enjoy one of these cakes and their spiritual benefits. In past times, those in the countryside would also eat these cakes to celebrate the harvest, and believed eating them would bring a bigger yield of crops as they grow taller, gao, high, just like the cakes. These cakes are typically made in layers, sometimes even up to 9 layers, resembling a tower or pagoda, and are often topped with symbolic decorations. The one I've chosen is specially designed in 2 shapes. Here you see the heart, representing love. And if you turn it around, it's now in the shape of a peach and represents longevity and peace. When gifting ChongYang cakes to the elderly, it's nice to gift it as the peach shape and younger family members as the heart shape. I admit, the main reason I chose this is because it's pink. I just really love things in a sweet rosy shade. This particular one is made from strawberry powder, walnuts, red dates, watermelon kernels, and red and green strips, which I think are similar to what we call hundreds and thousands in the UK. The cake is in 2 layers, with red bean paste as its base layer. It tastes gorgeous, and this has to be my favourite ChongYang cake to date. In times past, when dawn broke on Double Ninth Festival, people would put a piece of cake on the forehead of their children whilst mumming auspicious wishes.
重阳节到了，愿你的生活充满阳光，学业有成，身体健康。
ChongYang Cake in Nanjing is also called Zaoli Cake, Zaoli Gao, which contains the blessing of the elderly for their children's early independence.
早立高，祝快快自立。
At ChongYang, the Chinese also visit the graves of their ancestors to pay their respects. In Hong Kong, the whole extended family will often head together to clean and repaint inscriptions on ancestral graves at this time. Food offerings such as fruit are also laid out for the ancestors. These can be left there for the ancestors or can be eaten after the spirits have consumed the spiritual element of the food. In my family, we generally leave the offerings at the gravesite, but those used on our own ancestral altars at home are often eaten after being left there for a few days. Though the timing does depend, of course, on the type of food offering that has been given. Personally, I myself have never consumed any of the offerings left at the altar, opting instead to offer them to wildlife outdoors. This, of course, is my own personal preference and what I feel is in line with my own practice. I have, however, participated in partaking in offerings during rituals where it is part of the ceremony. I don't believe there is a right or wrong way to do any of this. Instead, I believe we should all do what we feel is right for us personally. In mainland China, many don't have grave sites that they can visit, as due to the size of the population, cremation is generally carried out, and so incense sticks are burned inside the home and sometimes paper offerings outside of the home to show respect and appreciation at this time. At ChongYang, the temperature is generally getting a bit colder, and so it's a time when the physical living need warm clothing. Due to this, filial Chinese sons and daughters extended this to make the festival a time for providing warm winter clothes for their ancestors. For this, clothes are made out of paper and then burnt as offerings. There are ritual shops that sell ready-made paper clothes and other symbolic offerings to be burnt, though I personally prefer to make my own if I have the time, as I feel it adds an extra layer and meaning to the ritual. This heartfelt gesture serves as a profound way to pay homage to departed family members and ancestors at this time. In Chinese philosophy and traditional religion, it is believed that the souls of departed family members consist of a yin component known as the po. It is this component of the soul, the corporal soul, that these offerings are given. Pink is a favoured colour in China. It's seen as a shade of red and represents love, good fortune and happiness. Cyan in China is seen as the colour of nature. It was actually one of the most used colours in ancient Chinese paintings, being especially used in picturesque landscapes with lakes and mountains. For me, it also represents the coming winter season. I always like dressing in seasonal colours, so I'm sure the ancestors will also appreciate these new winter clothes. When making the clothing, I like to cut 2 layers and stick most of the edges together to make them more like real clothing. This kind of paper always tears so easily, so one really needs to focus and take their time making them. I have a lot of similar rituals that I partake in throughout the year. Some are a lot simpler and quicker to make than these clothes, but there's something about making them that I really enjoy. They kind of remind me of my childhood when I'd play with little paper dolls and let them try on different clothes. I've always been a very arty child, and so I've always enjoyed these types of rituals. And with that, the paper offerings are complete. Time to send them to the ancestors. you for joining along with me on today's journey. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and remember to subscribe and comment for more content. And I will see you in my next video. Bye! Samhain, Samhain, we honor all our kin. We honor those who've gone before as the great world turns again. Samhain, Samhain, we honor all our kin. We honor those who've gone before as the great will turn.